Last month, I made a video on Predaplan. The comment section is filled with people asking for trap tricks, so I thought, let's not do trap tricks. Now, I notice a certain person that appears every now and then in my comment section. Not just my Yu-Gi-Oh video, by the way. I don't remember their exact username, but I'm pretty sure it's referring to Evol. So I thought, you know what? Let's talk about Evol instead. Most Yu-Gi-Oh players that have played the game for quite a while should at least be familiar with Evolzar Laggia and Dolkka. But yes, Evol itself is a big archetype from 12 years ago, or perhaps even older. Concept-wise, Evol is a self-explanatory archetype, taken from Evolve, and the archetype revolves around evolution. It's based on prehistoric herpetofauna and, weirdly enough, alien stuffs. There are 3 stages of Evol: Evoltile, Evolsaur, and Evolzar. Evoltiles are mostly small prehistoric reptiles. You know, Evoltile. But there are some prehistoric amphibians too. The OCG name is Evoltile, which I'm not sure what it means to be honest. Evolsaurs are big prehistoric reptiles. Yes, even though they are called Evolsaur, and all of them are dinosaur type, not all of them are based on dinosaurs. Their OCG name is Evoltile, which, again, I'm not sure what it means. And Evolzars are draconic aliens, I guess? At least that's my impression. The OCG name is Evoltile. It's Kaiser, so the Tsar should also mean something like Tsar, which means ruler in various European languages. All of the Evol monsters have transparent tail with big DNA strands. Yes, that includes the Evolzar, by the way. All of them have some kind of molecules, which I think it's supposed to be nucleotide, but I don't think it's a real molecule. I think it's made up. All of them have the quote-unquote progression of primates image, or perhaps more commonly known as the evolution of man image. You know, the famous Charles Darwin thingy, on the bottom right corner. By the way, I said quote-unquote because this illustration was not intended to depict the evolution of man. But anyway, all of them have some kind of text on the background. I'm not sure what this text says. At first, I thought it's codon, the translated DNA, but after closer inspection, I realized these are not codon, at least not real codon. It's weird text, not even written in alphabet, so perhaps it's supposed to be some kind of alien language. All of them have the same background, by the way, including the Evolzar, but the Evolzars are so big that they cover most of the space. All of them have these cracked eye sockets with glowing eyes. Looks like a creature or something inside the husk of a body, if you get what I mean. You'll see as we look at each of them. Some of them also have binary auras surrounding them. I thought all of the Evolsaur and Evolzar have this, while Evoltiles don't, but I figured out not all Evolzar have this aura. Well, to be precise, I found out Evolzar Lios don't have this binary aura. Oh, and also, Evolzar Lars have weird alien inscription aura instead of binary code. So who knows, was the inconsistency caused by the gap of release? Or is it intended for whatever reason? I have no idea. Go ahead and tell me if there is a neat implication. Oh, by the way, they also have some spell trap stuffs called Evo. Most of them are written Evo dash like this, except one that is called Evolutionary Bridge. Alright, let's look at them one by one. From Evoltile to Evolsaur to Evolzar, and finally the Evo spell traps. Oh, by the way, just a disclaimer before we start, I'm gonna pronounce the scientific name with the classic Latin pronunciation, because scientific name is classic Latin. But remember, you don't have to do so. You can use the English pronunciation if that's what's easier for you. Starting from Evoltile Gephyro, aka Evoltile Gephyro. This is based on Gephyrostegus, which is not yet a reptile. It's a reptiliomorph amphibian from the Carboniferous. Now, if we're looking at the Yu-Gi-Oh card, this doesn't look like Gephyrostegus at all. There are several structural abnormalities here. Wrong gaits, wrong number of digits, weird vertebral spines, it has 2 horns, it has these shoulder wing-like thingies, weird cranial proportions, weird musculatures, so yeah. Oh, by the way, I'm gonna warn you, it'll be like this for the rest of the video, which is fine of course, Evols are influenced by alien stuffs after all. And, admittedly, I think they look cool. Anyway, next, Evoltile Megachirella, aka Evoltile Megachirella. It's based on Megachirella, which is a basal lepidosaur from Middle Triassic, potentially a stem squamata. If you Google Megachirella, you might see some articles saying scientists found Megachirella the ancestor of lizards or something like that. But no, it's not the ancestor of modern lizards. At the very least, most recent publication doesn't think so. Admittedly, we don't have that much fossil evidence of this creature, so we'll see in the future. Now, if you look at Evoltile Megachirella and compare it to the reconstruction, this looks diabolical. The head somehow resembles snapping turtles or some kind of synapsid. It has a really weird gaits, like a surprised cat if you know what I mean. It also has a pair of wings and some spines extension along its back, which is quite something to say the least. But hey, at least it's a reptile. Oh, and also, perhaps the blue mouth interior and tongue is aposematic, like many lizards, so it's quite neat. Evoltile Pleuro, aka Evoltile Pleuro. It's based on Pleurosaurus, which is not a dinosaur by the way. It's actually somewhat related to the Tuatara, but they are aquatic instead of terrestrials. They are marine reptiles from the late Jurassic period. Now, if you look at Evoltile Pleuro, funnily enough, it's quite accurate. Well, compared to many others in this archetype at least. It's not exactly accurate, you know? Wrong numbers of digits, these weird flaps or flanges alongside its body, the usual vertebral spines extension that can be found in Evol. But hey, at least this one has no wings. Unless these count as wings, which admittedly is still a really weird structure considering they swim. What's the functionality of this thing? Wouldn't these just hinder them when swimming? But anyway, Evoltile Elginero, aka Evoltile Elginero. It's based on Elginerpeton, which is a Devonian stegocephalian. Sometimes it's also used as a transitional model between amphibians and reptiles, albeit very rarely. Now, if you look at Evoltile Elginero, for me personally, it looks really funny. It looks like a Frightful card. But anyway, it has the usual vertebral spines extension and wings. The froglet tail is kinda neat, but might not necessarily be accurate. I do appreciate the webbed feet though. However, I don't think the digit is correct. It's depicted with 5 digits, right? Early stegocephalian have more than 5 digits. For example, Acanthostega have 8. Assuming Elginerpeton is even more basal than Acanthostega, it should have even more digits. Or perhaps no distinct digits at all. Maybe it only has fins. Now, if you are wondering, why am I not sure? That's because we actually don't have a lot of fossil evidence for Elginerpeton, which is a common theme throughout the entire archetype by the way, you'll see. I believe we only have a jaw fragment, partial girdles, and perhaps some long bones of the limb, like femur or tibia. We don't have any feet fossil of them. Oh, and also, I'm kinda curious. Why is it standing? What was the designer thinking when making this artwork? Or what was the direction given to them? But anyway, Evoltile Najasho, aka Evoltile Najasho. It's based on Najash, which is a famous basal snake from Cretaceous. Najash is famous because it still has hind legs and pelvic bones. Najash don't have front legs and pectoral girdle though, unlike some other basal snakes. So basically, they are somewhat transitioning into the serpentine body form that we are used to right now. Looking at Evoltile Najasho, it shares the iconic serpentine body with hind limbs but without the front limbs, just like what it's based on. However, as always, vertebral spine extensions and wings. Oh, and also, this dentition looks like a thecodont dentition. Thecodont dentition is like our teeth, where the teeth are fixed inside sockets. Snakes typically have pleurodont dentition, where the teeth stick to the inner surface of the jawbone. Some argue snake teeth are modified thecodont. But anyway, their teeth won't be sticking out of their gums like this. Najash's teeth are modest. Evoltile Odokeris, aka Evoltile Odonto. It's based on Odontochelis, a basal relative of turtle which still have some teeth, hence the name. Odontochelis means tooth turtle. Odontochelis only have plastron, no carapace. That means only the lower part of their shell. Their dorsal part are just broadened ribs covered with skin, so it's not hard. Oh, and they are marine turtles. Now, looking at Evoltile Odonto, nah, this is not it, dude. This looks like a tortoise. Just try asking any herpetologist or paleontologist. No one will tell you this is Odontochelis at all without looking at the name prior. Nothing about this design screams Odontochelis. Not even a marine turtle. If they at least show its teeth, then it would be decent. But they did not. And, as always, you know the drill. Vertebral spine extensions and wings. Because, of course, it's Evol after all. Evoltile Pholis, aka Evoltile Pholis. One of the new cards. Well, relatively that is. I'm not 100% sure what it's supposed to be based on, but it's probably Pholidosaurus. Again, not a dinosaur by the way, it's a crocodilomorph from early Cretaceous. We also don't have that much of their fossil, but we do have skull fragments though. They have an elongated snout. Now, if you look at Evoltile Pholis, this head doesn't look like Pholidosaurus' head. It looks like a crocodile head. The gait is also weird, and it has this weird frill thingy here. And of course, say it with me, vertebral spine extensions and wings. Classic. Evoltile Casineria, aka Evoltile Casinerio. It's based on Casineria. By the way, did you realize by now? The TCG localization team tried so hard to make their name ends with O for whatever reason. Still, there are some of them that just don't. Again, for whatever reason. But anyway, Casineria is a tetrapodomorph from the Carboniferous period. Casineria was quite famous because they have a mix of amphibian-like traits but also advanced reptile-like characteristics. So it's possible that they may have been the early amniotes. However, we haven't found their skull, and skull is very important to the field of paleontology and animal systematic, so it's not conclusive at all. Now, looking at this Evoltile Casinerio, I don't know why, but it looks really funny to me. It feels like I'm looking at an Argonian when I'm looking at its head. And of course, as always, vertebral spine extension. No wings though, but they do have this membranous extension that looks like it could be functional for gliding, to some extent at least. Evoltile Lagosuchus, aka Evoltile Lagosucho. It's based on Lagosuchus. Lagosuchus means rabbit crocodile. At least I think so. However, it's not a crocodile, not a crocodilomorph, not even a pseudosuchia. It's most likely a dinosauriform from the late Triassic. The validity of this genus is dubious though, as it is sometimes confused with Marasuchus. Looking at Evoltile Lagosucho, honestly, it's not bad. They should only have 4 digits though. This one has 5. There are also some unnecessary webbings here and there, which, let's just say, I'm not sold on the functionality of these webbings. It also has a really weird dentition. Oh, and, as always, vertebral spines extension. No wings though. Last of the little creatures, Evoltile Westlo, aka Evoltile Westlo. It's based on Westlothiana, a lizard-like thing from Carboniferous. I say lizard-like thing because we actually don't know what it is. Is it still amphibian? Is it a reptile? A reptiliomorph maybe? We are still not sure. Not enough evidence. Will there be more fossil record? Who knows? Fun fact though, Westlothiana means from West Lothian. West Lothian, well, perhaps I butchered the pronunciation, so I'll just write it instead. It's a council area in Scotland. So, if you are from West Lothian, this is you. There is one aspect of this design that looks really off to me. That is, the claws. The claws are somewhat fanning outwards, if you get what I mean. Normally, claws are either relatively straight or at least curved downwards. These claws curved sideways, outwards, which is kinda weird. Oh, and as always, yep, you know the drill, but no wings though, only these membranous extensions. That's all the Evoltiles. This video had been going on for a while, so before we continue, I would like to remind you to rest your eyes and stay hydrated. Now, enter the Evolsaur, starting from Evoltile Cerato, aka Evolsaur Cerato. It's based on Ceratosaurus, a famous dinosaur from the late Jurassic period. Well, most of you would know it as Ceratosaurus, which is the English pronunciation. Ceratosaurus literally means horned lizard, because that's the most striking characteristics of their skull, especially when it was first discovered. The functionality of these nasal horns had been debated. Some think it's for combat, while some think it's simply for display. Looking at the Evolsaur Cerato, the nasal horn in this guy looks like it's for display, because it looks membranous and thin. The arms are quite interesting. These look like it would be functional to grasp things, which might be correct actually. Ceratosaurus might be able to use their hand to grasp things. However, they should only have 4 digits. I think the skull is also off, but it might just be the angle. Oh, and, as always, vertebral spine extension and wings, because why not? Evoltile Diplodocus, aka Evolsaur Diplo. It's based on Diplodocus, also a famous dinosaur from the late Jurassic. Its name means double beam, referring to the double beam chevron bone on its tail. As with other sauropods, they have long neck and tail. Diplodocus has an exceptionally long tail, often depicted being used as a whip in reconstruction and documentaries. Evolsaur Diplo does not depict this, which is unfortunate. Its tail is also not long enough. This looks like a generic sauropod to me. Like, if you ask someone to draw a sauropod without specifying which one. The head is also off. It should have a proportionally longer snout in my opinion. And of course, they gotta have vertebral spines extension and wings. Oh, and on their head too, because why not? Evoltile Lios, aka Evolsaur Lios, one of the newer cards. It's based on Lariosaurus, which is not a dinosaur by the way. It's a nothosaur, a marine reptile from Middle Triassic. What's cool about this is there is an almost complete specimen. Compared to other nothosaurs, they have a relatively short neck. Looking at Evolsaur Lios, this is just way too dang. Their limbs are straight up wings. It looks like a leviathan that floats in the air. You know, like those in fantasy settings. Somehow they also have puffy cheeks and frills, which is kinda funny. And the usual evil thing, of course, it's getting old now. Evoltile Pelta, aka Evolsaur Pelta. It's based on Sauropelta, a nodosaurid from early Cretaceous. If you are not familiar with nodosaurid, basically it's like ankylosaurid, but no mace on the tip of its tail. Sauropelta have large spikes on the side of their neck and especially their shoulders. Evolsaur Pelta emphasized that trait nicely. And, to my surprise, no vertebral spine extension, nor wings. Well, at least none are visible. Admittedly, this head is kinda weird. The proportion is off. But hey, it is what it is. It's good enough, I guess. Evoltile Udcanodon, aka Evolzar Vulcano. It's based on Vulcanodon, a sauropod from early Jurassic. Vulcanodon means volcano tooth. Funnily enough, we don't have any tooth fossil of them, and the fossils are not located on a volcano, so that's quite something. Well, the Vulcan on its name could revert to Vulcanus, the god of fire and desert. Their habitat is desert-like, so it's quite fitting, I guess. Still, no tooth though. We don't have that much specimens of them. This is all we got, so we don't really know much about them. So, to be fair, I couldn't compare much about their morphology. But still, I'm pretty sure they don't have wings. But it's technically not conclusive, so it is what it is, I guess. Evoltile Darwinos, aka Evolsaur Darwino. It's based on Darwinopterus, a pterosaur from Middle Jurassic. Darwinopterus is considered somewhat basal, so they have long tails similar to Rhamphorhynchus, but they also have some advanced traits like pterodactyls. Basically, they seem to be transitional, just like many other creatures that are featured in this archetype. Males have serrated crests, which is depicted really weirdly in Evolsaur Darwino. They also have crests on their lower jaw, which is also weird. Ikran Draco have a small crest on their lower jaw, and that's basically it as far as I know. Long crest on the lower jaw is mostly a fantasy world depiction. Anyway, they have wings of course, they are pterosaurs after all, but they have some feathers? Or are these just patterns? Their claws are also exceptionally long for whatever reason. And yeah, this as always. Evoltile Elias, aka Evolsaur Elias. It's based on Amphicoelias. Okay, that might sound really weird for you because it's usually pronounced Amphicoelias in English. But yes, as I said earlier, I'm pronouncing it with classic Latin pronunciation. Amphicoelias is sauropod from the late Jurassic. Amphicoelias means double-sided hollow, or in this case, double-sided concave. That's because their vertebrae are amphicoelous, aka concave on both front and rear end. The centrum, that is. This was compared to the more famous sauropod, Camarasaurus, which have opisthocoelous vertebrae. Nowadays, Amphicoelias are usually classified in the same family as Diplodocus, which is Diplodocidae. However, like most other that I've talked before, Amphicoelias fossil is also incomplete and of dubious nature, so there's still a possibility of another revision. Who knows? Looking at Evolsaur Elias, I don't even know what to say. It's like if a sauropod is so into punk. Not the punk archetype, but the music or fashion kind of punk. But hey, at least there is no wings. Loss of the sub-archetype, Evoltile Terias, aka Evolsaur Terias. It's based on Epantherias. It is, most likely, an allosaurid from the Upper Jurassic. I say it most likely because, well, this is the only fossil we got on them. Yup. This is it. If we're talking about dubious fossils, compared to the one we've talked about so far, this is the pinnacle of dubious fossil. So yeah, it's a perfect fit for the archetype. But there is not much to talk about. Evolsaur Terias looks like it's a drake or some kind of baby dragon from an MMORPG or whatever. But hey, speaking of dragons, let's take an evolutionary leap to the Evolzar. Evolzar Laggia, aka Evolzar Laggia. I think this is based on Unenlagia, which is a somewhat famous dromaeosaurid from the late Cretaceous. Even though Unen Laggia is quite famous, we actually don't have that much of their fossil materials, which is not surprising at this point. I'm pretty sure I don't need to point this out, but yes, Evolzar Laggia does not resemble Unen Laggia at all. It's just a weird alien dragon thingy. Evoltile Dolkka, aka Evolzar Dolkka. Now, I was unsure about the reference of Dolkka. I couldn't think of any, but I thought it should also be some kind of prehistoric reptiles because, at the very least, Laggia and Solda is based on something. So, maybe Dolkka is also based on something real. So, I scoured the internet and I stumbled upon this trivia section of Yu-Gi-Oh fandom and Wikipedia. It said it could be taken from Dolichosuchus. And I was like, what? That's so random. I mean, yeah, it fits since Dolichosuchus is an obscure taxon based on a single tibia. Yes, single tibia by the way. So it fits as one of the boss monsters of the obscure prehistoric herpetofauna archetype. But still, I couldn't take this too seriously. Oh, and I just realized, Dolkka is originally a TCG exclusive, so that's quite something. But yeah, art design wise, this is just a draconic alien thingy, just like Laggia. Evoltile Solda, aka Evolzar Solda. Based on its name, it could be taken from Sordes, a basal pterosaur from the late Jurassic. The discovered fossil is actually almost complete, but it's a crushed skeleton found on a slab, so detailed analysis is difficult. At a glance, it looks like a Ramporin kit, hence it's often illustrated similarly. I personally don't think Evolzar Solda looks like Sordes at all, but at least its body is slender and it has long beak just like Sordes. I don't know, you tell me. Last, the relatively new and quite useful one. Evoltile Lars, aka Evolzar Lars. I have no idea what this name is supposed to be, so again, I checked the trivia section on Wikipedia and Yu-Gi-Oh fandom. Wikipedia said it's a wordplay of Roth and Moose, a river that Mosasaurus is named after. If this is true, that's kinda neat. I like it. However, I'm kinda confused because Mosasaurus is not an obscure taxon at all. Yu-Gi-Oh fandom said it might be named after Razanan Drongobe or Auroras Darko. Now, that's more like it, at least in terms of obscure taxon. Razanan Drongobe was an obscure crocodiliform from Middle Jurassic. The holotype was a maxilla fragment and a tooth found in 2003. However, in 2017, more fossils were described, so the validity of this taxon is more robust. Auroras Darko is pterosaur from the late Jurassic. While this fossil looks like it's basically complete, this individual is a juvenile. Not only that, this fossil was not assigned the name Auroras Darko originally. This fossil was called Pterodactylus longirostris. Another specimen was assigned the name Pterodactylus micronix. So yeah, it's obscure enough if you ask me. Oh, by the way, there is adult specimens, but they don't have skull. Now, if you look at Evolzar Lars, whether it's Mosasaurus, Razanan Drongobe, or Auroras Darko, I don't think it matched those creatures. Another thing that I was curious about is, why don't Lars have the binary aura that the others have? It has these weird inscriptions instead. Evolzar Lars looks cool though. It's my favorite Evolzar art-wise. And yeah, that's all the Evol monsters. However, we do have some spell traps like I said earlier, so let's check those. EvoForce shows Evoltile Casinerio evolving into Evolsaur Elias, which is irrational if you ask me. However, the OCG name is Kyosei Shinka, which means forced evolution, so that adds a nice context. Honorary mention, the Gen Force, which is not in the archetype technically, but it does depict Evolsaur Terias devolving into Evoltile Westlo, which is even more irrational if you ask me. The OCG name is Kyosei Taika, which means forced degeneration. So yeah. Evo diversity shows Evoltile Lagosucho's tail. I'm not sure what it's supposed to mean. Maybe it's showing the DNA strand on its tail that is splitting on the base. The OCG name is Taiyo Shinka, which means diverse evolution. Evo Karma shows Evoltile Gephyro radiating something. Perhaps this indicates evolutionary radiation, which means when a certain taxon evolves into multiple clades. It does highlight one lineage though, so perhaps it's showing the fact that Gephyro is forced to undergo that particular evolutionary line. The OCG name is Shinka no Shukume, which basically means the fate of evolution. So yeah. Evo Miracle shows Evolsaur Cerato radiating some binary codes? I'm not sure what it's trying to depict here. The OCG name is Shinka no Kiseki, which means the miracle of evolution. Evo Price shows wait, is this supposed to be Darwino? I don't think this is Darwino. This is a bird-like creature. Darwino does not look like this, right? I did not miss any Evol monster, I think. So that means this little guy has not yet been released as its own card. But anyway, it also shows Evolsaur Diplo and Terias frozen on the back. I'm not sure what it means. Is that the price of the evolution? They got frozen because something evolved? That's kinda weird. The OCG name is Shinka no Daisho, which means the compensation of evolution. Well, basically price. Evo branch shows a weird alien guy in a node between evolving into Evoltile Gephyro or Pleuro. I mean, it's self-explanatory, but why are the aliens evolving into prehistoric herpetofauna? Also, what's with the big alien on the back? The OCG name is Shinka no Bunkiten, which means evolutionary turning point, basically branch of evolution. Evo instance shows Evolsaur Pelta bursting out of Evoltile Odonto, which is interesting to say the least. That explains why all of them looks like a husk with something obscure hidden inside them, but you know what? I'm not gonna overthink it. The OCG name is Totsuzen Shinka, which is kinda funny to me. It means sudden evolution. Evo Singularity shows Evolzar Laggia breaking reality, I guess. Well, causing singularity, perhaps? Cool art though. The OCG name is Shinka no Tokuiten, which means evolution singularity. Primordial Soup shows Evolzar Diplo being created in the test tube, or I guess capsule, or whatever. In case you didn't know, primordial soup is a hypothetical condition of how organisms could appear. It's when the seas are full of molecules and the atmosphere are thin, so the molecules in the sea are exposed to various energy, which catalyze the formation of organic compounds, which in turn form complex organic polymers, and so on before finally develop into a living organism. The OCG name is Gensho no Soup, which is literally primordial soup. Evolutionary Bridge shows a thing evolving into Evoltile Odonto, which in turn evolved into Evolzar Vulcano, which is also irrational by the way, but it is what it is. Actually, what is this roundish thingy? Is that an egg? Because the shape does not look like the little alien guy from before. Anyway, the OCG name is Shinkai no Kakehashi, which means the bridge towards evolution. Some honorary mention, breakthrough skill depicts Evolzar Dolkka breaking through something. Maybe this is similar to the concept of Evo Singularity where Laggia is breaking the reality. Exist Territory depicts Evolzar Dolkka aura farming. Well, that's a joke and a term that I'm not 100% familiar with. But I mean, it basically is, right? Isn't that a proper usage of the term? Anyway, that's all of the card, at least as far as I know. Do tell me if I miss any. Now, in my other Yu-Gi-Oh video, I always talk about what's left, what other creatures or inspiration they could take for future support. For the case of Evol, I'm not even sure because they could basically pick whatever. There are tons of obscure fossils, more so than the well-studied fossils actually. Looking at the roster of Evol monsters, I feel like we're missing ornithopod representation. Actually, we also don't have any marginal cephalian. For ornithopod, there are several obscure taxa. For example, Hypselospinus, which was assigned the name Darwinsaurus and Huxleysaurus. Or, there is a cool fossil called Fulgurotherium. That's extremely obscure though. For Marginocephalian, there are many, to be honest. Just pick one of the basal Ceratopsian from China. Or they could also use things like Dracorex or Stygimoloch, which is now considered subadult form of Pachycephalosaurus. But yeah, that's just some examples. Like I said, they could basically pick anything. Evol is not famous and quite niche to be fair. Even the dino dudes don't like playing Evol because they don't do the typical destroying stuffs that modern dino decks likes to do. What I'm trying to say is, I'm not sure if we're even gonna get another Evol. But hey, maybe there are some Evol enjoyers out there. But even if you're not, thank you for watching. Hope you learned something new, or at the very least, hope you are entertained. I did make 2 Yu-Gi-Oh videos previously, so check that out if you haven't. Or you could just browse my channel. Maybe something will pique your interest. But that's all for this video. Enjoy your day.